Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the FilmSpeak channel for our weekly WandaVision reviews and recaps. We're going to be breaking down episode number 4, which I don't think has a title just yet. If it does, drop it down in the comment section below. But yes, we're going to be talking about it in all its spoilery goodness. Was a mind-blowing episode of the show yesterday, and so I can't wait to dive into it. But listen, if this is your first time checking out the FilmSpeak channel, we like to say the conversation continues after the credits here, and so if you would love to be a part of that conversation and talking about movies, TV, and all that good stuff, consider subscribing to the channel and sticking around for the rest of our WandaVision coverage if that's what you're into as well. But as always, guys, I don't do these alone. I am joined by the great Elliott from Movie Files. Elliott, how's it going, man?
Hey, man, as Paul Bettany warned us, it was definitely a mind-bending, blowing episode, especially that haunting last few minutes of the episode was like a horror film. But I think the title of the episode was We Interrupt This Program, which is perfect because it does divert from the 3 episodes we've gotten so far, man. But I'm really excited to break it all down, man.
Yeah, for sure. And just so you all know, because I forgot to clarify this at the top, I am doing this remotely, so I don't have my whole usual setup and everything, so it's a little less polished than it usually is. But I figured out how to use my iPhone to do this, and so it looks a hell of a lot better than if I was using my my webcam on my MacBook.
Looks good, man. It looks nice and crisp.
Yeah, the only thing I'm missing is the audio. If I'm being honest, that's the thing that I'm always bummed I can't have that mic in front of me and everything. But going into this thing, I didn't really know what to expect because as with this show, I don't ever really know what to expect. I sort of have a direction of where I think it's heading, but I think you and I were talking about they were either going to go into the next era of sitcoms for this episode, or they're going to take a breather from that, and we're going to get like Monica Rambeau's sort of like backstory, and we're going to enter like the larger MCU before going back into the sitcom, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, this was it basically recapped the last 3 episodes of the series, but like from the outside perspective, which usually I hate that when TV shows do that, but in this case, I thought it was necessary, and the show did something that isn't really easy, and it made exposition interesting. It gave us answers while posing more questions, and was still able to sprinkle in some really solid character moments. But to those of you watching this live, if you're watching this on the replay, be sure to jump down in the comment section and let us know your thoughts on the episode. But Elliott, I want to throw it to you, and I want to know your thoughts on this episode, this game-changing episode.
Well, starting off the gate, man, with the blimping situation, I was just immediately just like, number one, it just kind of caught me off guard because, like you just said, I didn't know if we were going to jump into the 80s and maybe cut between the 80s and then what's going on outside. But just again, like you just mentioned, having kind of a recap of what was going on outside and kind of answering the questions we got from the first episode. Like, okay, that was Jimmy Woo that called Wanda over the phone or the radio. That was, Monica Rambeau, her helicopter that went into the actual Westview. So getting those questions answered, but then also kind of reintroducing us to Dorothy Lewis and realizing, are we going to get Jane Foster in the mix? And you're thinking about Thor and all the different things. So I thought this episode, as was kind of advertised these last few days by Paul Bettany, saying this episode is going to really kind of set the stage for, as we kind of talked about last week, episodes 1 to 3 was just like the beginning of the movie. It's the first act of the film. And now episode 4, 5, and 6 is going to be the second half. And then we're going to cap off with some mind-bending stuff. But I will say, that $225 million budget, it kind of showed in this episode for sure. Did. And I love that it's like, okay, now it felt like it was not that the other episodes didn't feel like a movie, but this felt like I was watching a Marvel film.
Yeah. I think, and I've seen people say that a lot. It was like basically a super condensed Marvel movie into like 30 minutes. And I was like, honestly, after the end of those 30 minutes, I was like, damn it, Marvel, why do you got to do this? You got to make every episode 30 minutes? Damn it. Because it really hooked me at the end, especially with, all the unsettling creepiness and horror vibes that were going on there, which we'll get into that later. But let's talk about the other characters that are really getting some time to shine here. So we get Darcy coming back. We get Jimmy Woo from the Ant-Man films, and obviously we get Monica Rambeau. And let's start with that incredible pre-title sequence, which they explored the blip in Spider-Man Far From Home, but they
Mhm.
did it in such a comedic way that we didn't actually feel the weight of it, the seriousness of it. And so in this, we literally start with Monica Rambeau, like, coming back from Ash, and what has been like 3 years for the world has only been a matter of seconds for her. And so when that whole thing happens and there's chaos going on in the hospital, and she's looking for her mom, like that was, and it was done in like the one take shaky cam. I was like, that's fascinating, and that's what I want to see more of, because it not only like cements Thanos as like one of the greatest villains of all time, which he already is up there in the ranks of them, but it just shows like what people lost, and like when they come back to the real world, what they have to deal with. And it's part of the reason why in Endgame I loved that first act so much, because it was
so beautiful character development and tragedy and what they're going through. It's beautiful. And
I don't know if you've seen The Leftovers, but it reminded me
one of my favorite shows of all time.
Right.
Rapture.
And so it's like them dealing with that, but in like the MCU way, I thought was gripping, really edge of your seat emotional stuff. But and I know we're sort of on the same page with this, but like what did you make of that pre-title sequence?
It's just so, I still have Agnes as one of my favorite characters, but in the last 2 weeks, man, Monica Rambeau and the performance we're getting from Tiana Paris has really gotten me more and more excited for Captain Marvel 2 with Nia DaCosta and all the people they have attached to that. But just seeing her performance, and it makes you care for the character, even though we haven't technically seen the actress in the role, but we can still, even though, Captain Marvel, people have their gripes with the film, it's just that connective tissue. Her as an 11-year-old girl, how she looks up to her mother, and then when we see her as an adult, she's lost her mom, and just that grief, like you had mentioned, it makes you care for the character. So once we have the stuff that hits the fan, you have that much more connection to the characters, the understanding from the characters, and you're building the character from this kind of tragedy, and just makes it so much more investing. You want to know more. It broke my heart to hear that Marie we won't see her. I hope we get flashbacks of Letitia in that role, maybe in Captain Marvel 2, or maybe hell in this show, who knows, with Wanda's warping abilities. But I thought the way that they kicked off the episode, man, was just so great, and put so much weight and put so much, kind of tension in that moment. And I thought that opening was just a sight to see, man. Again, we got a haunting beginning matched with a haunting end. So it was a great way to kind of begin and end the episode for sure.
Yeah, like the beginning was definitely like post-apocalyptic and everything, and then the end was just like full on like creepy, like Elseworld horror stuff. Like we keep dancing.
PG,
around,
right? This is supposed to be a PG show, okay.
Dude, right?
All
like,
right.
It shows what they could do. What was I saying? I think it was on your live show. I was saying like, look, if Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince can be rated PG, and they could do some creepy shit in there, I think WandaVision could do some creepy shit in here and whatnot.
Yep.
But so then from there we get to the the title card and everything, and then we get dropped into the real world, and Monica Rambeau is going back to S.W.O.R.D, and she meets up with the new director there, Tyler Hayward, who has sort of taken her position, and you can see how that's really not sat well with her, and I thought that was a really interesting bit of social commentary in there, as well as about, it's like, her mom built this place from the ground up. She's the logical successor, and then this fucking white dude comes in and takes advantage of the situation. And so I don't know, that was a nice little bit there. But then that's the other thing that we learned, is that Monica's mother was the one who she built S.W.O.R.D, kind of like how Peggy was one of the integral factors in building S.H.I.E.L.D. And so there's a lot of stuff that sort of happens there. And it's sort of like, the director's talking about, using S.W.O.R.D for like militaristic purposes. And then she's like, well, we're
AI,
also
nanotech and all that.
And then sort of Monica's going like, well, we're also like about exploring and discovering stuff. And it's like, the more like optimistic side of that. So out of that whole exchange, what was your sort of like big takeaway about what was going on?
Tyler is definitely someone I keep an eye on. That's definitely one thing I want to kind of acknowledge is I think, and kind of doing some research, because what I was doing with this episode, I was like, okay, who's this character? Googling this person. And the only thing I was able to find from Tyler is that apparently, I don't know how much connective tissues they're going to have with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but there was a character that went by the name of Brian Hayward, and he was revealed to be a Hydra agent. So again, we know that Hydra some way, somehow is going to have their hands into the mix, whether it be their association with AIM, and we got the Strucker watch, and he was creator of AIM, and we know MODOK may or may not be someone to look forward to in the future. So I think that Tyler Hayward is someone that we should definitely keep an eye out for, whether that be Hydra or something even worse, or we know the Skrulls are coming, Secret Invasion. He could be a Skrull himself, infiltrating the situation. But what I got from that sequence there is just, again, like you just mentioned, just the backstory that Marie was able to create S.W.O.R.D. And I would imagine, which I wonder the connection between her and Nick Fury, if he's like the director of the space version of it, and then they have like a human level of sorts. So I wonder if we'll get some remnants of what Nick Fury's been up to, as well as Captain Marvel. But I just thought, again, it was just a great way to kind of catch us up to what's going on and getting that backstory from Marie of building S.W.O.R.D, which is awesome for that character.
Yeah, well, I think it just goes to show again, from like a worldview, it shows the impact of Thanos. Like, because Thanos came from like outer space and did all this crazy stuff, they established S.W.O.R.D and was like, okay, we need a unit, a division that can combat these intergalactic threats, and then also like explore everything that's out there, because we have no idea what the hell is going on.
Very true.
So that was just like another really great way of just showing where the world is at. Yeah. After the blip happens, after the events of Avengers Endgame, and all that stuff. Oh, and then the other thing we learned is that Monica was an astronaut, or she was some sort of type. I
think that's some foreshadowing. I think that's how they're gonna maybe implement her powers, and they'll probably say that for Captain Marvel too. But yeah, I love, like you just mentioned, kind of foreshadowing little Easter eggs of her exploring the space, and we'll see what comes of that next time she goes to space.
Yeah, I want to ask you about her abilities, because it's been highly speculated that she will get abilities and become like a superhero and everything that's going on like that. And I don't really know too much about her from the comics, or like what her abilities are, or all that stuff. But wasn't the nickname of her mom like Photok or something like that? Isn't that what
takes
Monica,
that mantra?
Yeah, she takes the mantra.
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of her comic book runs, but from what I do know, like you just mentioned, that there is some connection there with that name, as well as the power sets are similar to Captain Marvel. I don't know if it's as heightened as what we got with at least in the MCU version of Captain Marvel, but yeah, I think we're going to see some type of space exploration, and she's going to go over there and have a similar type of connection to her powers, or in the MCU way of kind of remixing the storyline. Who knows what the effects could have been of Wanda pushing her out of the portal, and the radiation that they bring up in this episode, if there's some type of effects from that, and they're going to kind of maybe have that be her ways of having inklings of getting her powers. But yeah, man, again, this is Marvel doing what they've done in the last 13 years, man, just planting the seeds for things in future characters, and also big moments for these characters.
For sure. Well, and that's the thing that I wanted to, and you kind of already like touched on it a little bit, but like, do you think that Monica already has these abilities or something like that? Is there something that maybe happened prior to the events of Avengers Endgame that maybe like planted the seeds for those abilities? Or do you think that this series is going to be where she gets those abilities, so that when we get to Captain Marvel 2, she's much more of a contributing factor to that story that's going on there?
I would, if I was Marvel, I would maybe introduce it in this show, and then again, we might see her again in whether it be, I don't know, a Hawkeye series, or see her in a film. I don't think she's cast for Spider-Man, but I think this would be a good way to introduce her, getting her abilities, and by the time she's in Captain Marvel 2, we're just hitting the ground running. Her, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, taking on whatever their threat is. So I think this would be a great way to kind of introduce her powers in this show, getting her powers in the show, and then her kind of honing her powers in by Captain Marvel 2.
Yeah, for sure. So then from there, she's basically tasked by Director Hayward to go to New Jersey, right? Mm-hmm. To figure out, because there's like a missing persons case going on there that the FBI is asking for help with, and they're like, okay, there might be a little bit of an intergalactic threat there. And so she obviously goes there to Westview and meets up with Jimmy Woo, and they're like still sort of trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And my favorite thing about that initial interaction is that we finally get to see
the card trick,
the close-up magic. He's been learning it, he's been practicing it, and all
the details. You gotta love the details, man.
Well, and those are the little Easter eggs and like the comedic bits that I think work when they don't
Yeah.
call attention to themselves, when they're just like, oh, if you've watched these movies, then you know him doing the the close-up magic is really like that's a nice payoff on that.
Yeah.
But then the interesting thing about that is that when they get there, they sort of hint at the fact that Westview doesn't actually exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's an interesting sort of thing to explore there. There is an East View, but Westview is I mean, like I think Jimmy Woo basically alludes to the fact it's more than just like a missing persons case. It's like a missing town. Yeah,
3,892 to be exact, I believe.
Right, right. And like this is where I think the show starts getting like some interesting sci-fi vibes. Like we start getting like to me like with all of this stuff, and then with Darcy coming in and like them setting up the stations and whatnot. I was like, this is sort of reminding me of Close Encounters a little bit of a rival bringing in the team and whatnot.
Yep.
And so there's like an interesting thing, which is like the people that I guess would have some sort of connection to the town, like don't really
selective amnesia, I think was what Jimmy called it.
It was like selective amnesia. And it's like because Monica and Jimmy don't really have that like involvement with the town, they're able to sort of see it as what it is or what. So it was like it's just more to unravel there in terms of just this whole thing. So but I kind of want to get your take on this though.
Yeah, the connection piece. So yeah, the two police officers say, yeah, we're from Eastview, but there's no such thing as a Westview, and you can clearly see the sign right next to them that they're not even acknowledged that this is. So it makes you kind of wonder again, this hex, again, we see on Jimmy's board this hex shape, and again, her being a witch, kind of affecting people's acknowledgement of this town. But why were the people from S.W.O.R.D in this town? How did they get there? Were they stationed there? Did they live there? Were they already under surveillance in this small town? Again, this selective amnesia, why are some people that aren't connected to it, like you just mentioned with Monica and Jimmy, able to see that there is clearly, like I said, a town there, but is gone missing? So reminded me of, like you just said, those movies mixed in with Annihilation meets X-Files. It just makes you wonder this whole sci-fi element of what's really going on with Westview and why were those S.W.O.R.D agents there, and are those S.W.O.R.D agents dead potentially? So again, I'm loving all the sci-fi digs that we got within this episode, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's just so much like it does answer a lot of questions. Like obviously we learned that this whole like reality is being controlled by Wanda. And she's, I mean, like, she will not give an inch, at all, just in terms of like acknowledging the outside world. She will continue living in this fantasy as long as she can. But like, there's still like all those interesting sort of things that are happening. Like it was so funny because obviously from here we start digging into, Darcy arrives and they start sending in the drones. And then
before we actually go there, I did want to ask you too, because Jimmy, he was looking for a person that he had in his protective program system. So I'm wondering that person might have been Agnes wasn't on that board. Dottie wasn't on that board. We still don't know who Ralph is. So it makes you wonder if he's anyone at all. Yeah. So it makes you kind of wonder who is going to be revealed to be a part of that. Is it my boy from Goodfellas? Is Ray Lorona in Westview?
That'd be funny. When he said the witness protection program, my mind immediately went to, it's Wanda. And like he knows that Wanda's in there, and like obviously there's like some other stuff that's going on. But then like as the episode sort of progresses, we learn that no, he doesn't know that Wanda's in there, and so there is like someone else in the witness protection program that he I guess is looking for it. And listen, it might just be like a random person. Like it doesn't necessarily have to tie in. But
we know Marvel does not have throwaway lines. Everything has an extra little meaning and subtext. So we'll see if that's revealed eventually.
Well, that's a good point. There's definitely everything serves a purpose here.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure. And so so then we get the arrival of like Darcy and all and everyone else, and then they're like, oh, there's these like radioactive waves and stuff like that, and then Darcy basically figures out that like she can like see what's going on by like turning on the television and everything. And then we also learn through some of that exposition that like the universe, like the same particles that were part of the Big Bang helped create this like bubble of a reality. And so like there's that funny line where it's like the universe created a sitcom with 2 Avengers, which is basically
I love that
like,
line too, by the way.
yeah, it's great. You know, it's kind of funny that they waited up until this point to use that in the marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is sort of like, you know, what created this reality? Like, was it in fact Wanda? Because we know that she's controlling it from the inside.
Yeah.
And we also know that the Infinity Stones are like they contain like some of the same attributes that were found in the Big Bang. And so is the Mind Stone involved in here in some capacity?
Again, the great reactors out there watching the trailers a billion times. There is a clip in one of the trailers, and we know Marvel likes to kind of manipulate their trailers, but there is a particular scene in one of the trailers from a couple weeks ago that shows Wanda in front of some yellowish type of stone. I assume it could be the Mind Stone. I don't know how she would have gotten the Mind Stone, since we know Thanos destroyed the stones to no longer exist in this timeline.
Yeah, and then Cap returned them, correct?
So we think, right? And Chris Evans coming back to the MCU, if that was really Chris Evans that came back, I don't know if he's trapped maybe, and maybe the Mind Stone's out there. But also too, Shuri, we got to remember that Shuri was the one that tried to extract the Mind Stone from Vision. And I don't know if she was able to keep some remnants of the Mind Stone, give it to Wanda, and she's able to keep that and make this Westview world. So again, there's just so many to think about. But again, you just mentioned the Big Bang Theory, that type of gamma radiation per se hasn't been seen since the Infinity Stone. So it makes you think, is an Infinity Stone still out there, still available?
Yeah, I mean that is the big question. Is like, you know, was she? I mean, she's so powerful. Was she able to just like duplicate like an Infinity? So like, you know,
yeah, man, her powers. I mean, if it is a comic book accurate version of her becoming Scarlet Witch, she is by far one of the most powerful, not only mutants but just Avengers and one of the beings on Earth. So who knows what her limits are, man.
Well, and here's the other thing. It's like, I mean, yes, you have the science aspect of it, but it's like, is it really? You know, what we see in the clips with her in front of like what looks like the Mind Stone, is that really the Mind Stone, or is it like, you know, Mephisto or whoever playing like tricks on her
situation? Yeah,
right. And so now naturally all of us who, you know, watch this series and speculate about it are going to be doing exactly what Jimmy Woo was doing on that.
Oh yeah, walls. I have it all on my wall. My phone is just like all the theories tied to each other. It's insane, man. This is what Marvel does to us.
That was price. That was another just really like, you know, subtle, self-aware part where it's like, is so Vision alive? Man. What is the hexagon?
It was so meta to me. Just like all those people that were kind of on the negative side about this, the first 3 episodes, this show kind of acknowledged the fact, like, wait, why are they in a sitcom? Oh, I love that moment of them having kids. Just so, like, did they write this episode like last week? And kind of got the general response from the audience, because it was just so cool of them acknowledging. And again, I just love this idea, the idea of the show of actors watching actors act in the middle of a show. It's just so awesome. The writing is just so spot on.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also seeing in the chat that some people are saying that, like, you know, it could be like flashbacks to like when she's with Hydra, because there are actually, and I don't know if you saw the clip that they just dropped today after the episode.
I did, man.
There was so much in there, and like and it looked like Wanda from when she was in Age of Ultron, like when she was being experimented on and everything. And so I think that, like, obviously with like her reality colliding with you know what's going on inside of her head, the trauma and whatnot, I have a feeling that a lot of that stuff is going to start to like come to the surface. And so we'll probably get like some of that those pieces incorporated into her reality. I'm convinced that we're going to see like James Spader as Ultron come back in this series in some capacity, you know.
Yeah, I think so, man. Again, whether that be in the form of AIM, whether that be in a kind of a MODOK type of hybrid version of Ultron, but I truly do hope that we get Ultron make an appearance, whether that be a flashback or, you know, still out there some way, somehow, because that is such a wasted opportunity of a villain that's one of the best villains in the comics. So yeah.
For sure, and there's definitely, like, you know, more opportunities to, like, I mean, and Ultron has come back in the comics before, so it's of course, and so it's like,
you know, like how do you destroy something like that?
Yeah, exactly. But I did want to sort of touch on just like that board with everyone. They were sort of like piecing the actors inside of the sitcom to, you know, people who were missing in the real world. and they were able to find everyone except for Dottie and what am I blanking? Agnes, and they didn't draw attention to the fact that they didn't know who they were, but like we clearly saw that there was no like card or whatever pieced with Agnes. I don't even know if Dottie was on the board.
She wasn't. I think the only time they acknowledged her is when Dorothy had said that, you know, she's interacting with someone. It's like, oh, there must be a human being. They didn't like acknowledge who that person was. And like you said, they didn't put two and two together. This isn't someone that's on your board. So it makes you think again, the significance of Dottie. And again, I know a lot of speculation out there is that it may or may not be, you know, Mephisto, you know, manipulating her in her body or whatever the case may be.
Right. And I have a feeling that like Agnes, it's too easy. Like she's Agatha Harkness. I think that's what it is. And she's obviously, you know, subtly manipulating Wanda to stay in the reality, to keep doing what she's doing. But she also has an in with Dottie in this club and everything that's going on. And so I could see Dottie being like that Mephisto sort of character. Because, and you know, maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me watching it at midnight or whatever. But when they're watching that interaction between Wanda and Dottie happen, and you get that abrupt cut, didn't it look like she aged a little bit? Like there was something weird going on with her face that looked like, I mean, and obviously we know what happened in episode 2 where she cuts herself and there's the blood on her hand and it's red and it's like, okay, is it really blood or is it like the body of Mephisto or whatever? But it's like, and I don't know. There was something when I was watching, I was like, there's something uncanny about what's going on there. And I'm totally prepared to just know that that's probably me imagining things, but there was something off about it.
Yeah, no, I think, again, just knowing that Marvel doesn't have any throwaway lines or moments of that nature, and there's always a significance to everything. Again, just the idea of Agnes, again, when she introduced Wanda to Dottie, she said, you got to get it in with Dottie. If you want to get this done, you want to get a part of the club, she is the one to get to. And I think that's just not the idea. Yes, it's the Stepford wives, and there's the head queen of the of the small town, but I think there's another significance to her. She's the key to everything, aka Mephisto manipulating the situation. Or again, we're all, it almost feels too obvious at this point, whether it be the devil's in the details.
Maybe we're just good at it.
That could be the case too. Or again, Marvel just throws a curveball at us all, and it's someone we haven't even thought of yet. I mentioned it in my review earlier today, man, that I don't know why I have this inkling that Mysterio might have something to do with some of this illusion out there. Again, we know that he's not dead. You don't get Jake Gyllenhaal for one film. I feel like Mysterio has some type of connections to some of this. And they mentioned the word barf in this episode, even though it was a kind of a throwaway line by Dorothy referring to Wanda washing the dishes, but she brought up the word barf, and we know barf was created by Tony Stark, which we know that was kind of the jealousy point of Quentin Beck. So I don't know if Mysterio have some type of connections to some of these illusions going on, or made some deal with Hydra or Mephisto himself. So I don't know, man. I would love to see Jake Gyllenhaal make an appearance some way, somehow, as Mysterio.
Yeah, that's fascinating. There's a good chance that it could be less supernatural than we think it is, and the supernatural is just more so coming from Wanda, and then this whole thing is like is her using that technology. I don't know.
A lot of drones. We saw a lot of drones in this episode. We know what the drones did in Spider-Man Far From Home, man. Again, I would imagine it's Mephisto, but if it's not, I would love a nice kind of a grounded reality reasoning of what's going on, but we'll see.
Right. Yeah, right. And then obviously, you know, just kind of going through the rest of the stuff that sort of happens there, we see that the beekeeper was actually an agent who was sent under the tunnel to like try and breach, you know, which we sort of figured. We figured it was probably someone who was just trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and then obviously they got pushed back.
Well, do we know that they got pushed back? Because we never saw that person come out like Monica Rambeau.
True. Yeah.
And I think his name was Agent Franklin, which again, Google was like, okay, let me look up who Agent Franklin is in the comics. And there is a comic book character by the name of Dr. Franklin Hall, who ends up becoming a villain who works with AIM yet again. So I don't know if there is some type of significance of that character not getting pushed out of Westview and somehow being, I don't know what Wanda did to him. So that would be something to keep an eye out for if he did escape Westview at all.
Yeah, man. This is why it's great to have you on. You come in and you bring all this insight that I haven't even considered. Because you're right. Because I was going back and I was thinking, oh, what happened when Wanda rewound that part of the episode, and it was like, okay, the beekeeper went back down, and she just like, okay, it didn't happen. I mean, it happened, but she was able to sort of like wipe it from like the episode.
Yeah.
But I guess you're right. We don't actually see what's happened to him. And
to
so,
him, yeah.
like, yeah, is she killing these people? I think that's interesting to consider.
Hey man, she came into the MCU as a villain. She has it, she has it in her. And we don't know what type of protocols Hydra did. We know how Hydra was able to mind warp and mind control Bucky. We don't know what kind of sensory or what type of things they've had done to Wanda where she has this type of trauma where if you say one word, or again, we know the trauma keeps coming back to her, that there might be a safe switch for her where she could just go back to that villain that we saw in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's it's interesting because in Age of Ultron they sort of teased the unhinged nature of Scarlet Witch because of like her upbringing and everything like that. But they never really went into it a whole lot. I mean, we get moments and glimpses of it here and there, but this is the first time that we really see what she's capable of from just like a psychological standpoint and like where her mind is at. I mean, it's basically like shattered in a million pieces. And so obviously with Monica Rambeau, we forgot to mention that she gets sucked into the, whatever the hell that is, the force field or whatever. And they're trying to figure out where she is. And so she's in there, she's assimilated, she's going by Geraldine, and then she approaches Wanda. And so there's a few things to sort of keep in mind or to consider here is, when you enter this reality, do you like lose all semblance of like who you were and just sort of like assimilate into what's going on? Or was she just like carefully
spy and all that?
Going undercover? I don't know. What are you leaning on that?
Well, it makes me think of the Herb scene last week when he was trying to say something to Vision. And again, I know a lot of people are saying that since Wanda was under the pressure of having 2 kids, that she wasn't able to pay attention to everything going on in Westview. So it was like a little bit of like a moment of other people breaking out of the trance or the hex that she has them in. And that's where we see Herb saying, well, we're all, he couldn't get it out. And we saw that Agnes stopped him. So I wonder if there is a nature of people kind of know what's going on, but then when Wanda has those breaks of not controlling everything, and that was the same thing with Geraldine when she slipped up and said, your brother was killed by Ultron. I don't know how she was able to have that moment of breaking out of it unless we, speculating again, she has her powers in the show and she's able to maybe break this trance, whatever the case may be, or she was a spy in the situation and can remember what was going on. But again, that's why I hope that we kind of, again, follow back up to next week and try to see, from Geraldine or from Monica Rambeau, she was able to acknowledge what was going on and she won't even remember what happened. So it makes you wonder, man.
Yeah. I wonder if it is that they're all dead in there.
Again, that trailer, man, when we talked about it a couple weeks ago when Agnes said, am I dead? Why would you say that? And she starts laughing.
Because you are. And then going off the line that what's his face says, I forget or Herb, what he says, and he's like, well, we're all, and then like Agnes cuts him off because she's the one who knows. Or at least we think she's the one who knows.
Based on that scene of this episode, Vision's dead. And when she sees him, his real form, he is dead. So I wonder if she sees these other people. Well, I guess the thing too, and again, this goes back to that clipboard scene. If they would have said, I don't know if people zoom in on it, says deceased, sword worker, or hasn't been seen in XYZ. So I wonder were they current shield or sword workers, if they were past sword workers, retired, and that's why they were in this kind of, when you retire from sword, you go to this community.
Yeah.
Thing, man.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to sort of consider with that, but again, it just keeps getting darker. Like the more I think about it, and I'm just like, this is like good for them for going this like dark and like not being afraid to just sort of like push the envelope a little bit more. Because you're always like, okay, Marvel's going to do something wacky, but they'll probably play it like somewhat safe, and it'll be like, oh, it's an interesting concept, but they could have pushed it. I don't think I'm going to have that reaction with this. Like, I'm really just very impressed by what they're doing here, just from a storytelling standpoint. And especially when we get to those final like 5 to 10 minutes of this episode where like we actually see the altercation between Monica Rambeau and Wanda, where like Monica starts bringing up Pietro, and then she completely snaps out of it. And we see the aspect ratio change, which is, oh god, that was so that was genius. And then we see Wanda completely shift into like the witch, like the Scarlet Witch, and so that was like, what an incredible performance by Elizabeth Olsen in that, where she just, I mean, she's been phenomenal throughout this entire series, but like that sequence there of how she's like just so neurotic was unsettling.
It speaks to, again, I love what Marvel's doing with this kind of reimagining, revisiting these characters that we always had an idea of, whether that be Wanda, whether that be Vision, and then even Jimmy Woo having his small appearance in Ant-Man 2, and even Darcy. Like I said, even these 20 minutes, man, I wasn't a big fan of Darcy's character at all in the first two. And it was not the acting, it was just the writing and the goofiness and the silliness. And that's when Marvel was still kind of figuring out some things in their first two phases. But even in this episode, she's Dr. Dorothy Lewis. She's a little bit more mature, a little bit more serious. You see how smart and intelligent she is when figuring all this stuff out. So I love that Marvel's allowing this TV show, or these forms of TV show, as you just mentioned, to take the risk. We might not see these things in a big blockbuster MCU event type of film, but the beauty of TV is you can take these risks in a 9-episode telling of the story. So I've been very happy to see that this isn't your cookie cutter Marvel type of approach, and they're diving into the sci-fi, the comedy, the horror, the trauma, all that stuff. I'm really excited with these 4 episodes thus far, and I can't wait to see what they have up their sleeve for the next 6.
Yeah, well, again, got to commend the writing here. Jack Schaefer, who wrote the entire series, has been killing it, not only just in terms of like really sharp and witty dialogue, but like just the layers to the script. Being able to write exposition in a way that's like engaging, and like you feel like, you know, you're learning a lot, but you're also like getting like, there's also like that sort of like emotional connection to what's going on. And like, again, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, we can sort of like say that this is sort of like a recap episode, but it's a really good recap episode that, you know, lends some insight into some other things that we hadn't necessarily considered, or that, you know, maybe we thought about, but is like basically confirmed here. But going back to that, that altercation with Monica Rambeau and Wanda, I mean, Wanda says some stuff in there that's basically just, you know, she flips the script on her. She's like, you know, you're an intruder. You don't belong here. So you can get out.
You're not my friend. You're not my neighbor. You're trespassing.
And then she just like shoves her out of there, which is like her trying to get into the mindset of assimilating into this community, almost like ashamed of the fact that she is different. You know, basically she's been treated that way her entire life. And so, you know, her basically, you know, now in this position, being able to flip the script, I think that was a really powerful moment.
It was an incredible moment, man. And it just came to my mind, too. We were just talking about the people of the community. I totally forgot about this. And I actually watched Age of Ultron about a week ago. Again, going back to her just at her beginning of her powers, when she was able to manipulate the entire town of Sokovia, when she had the people leave the town, just imagine what her power set is now in regards to manipulation and putting people on their hex. So I'm just kind of going back to that Age of Ultron again, and having Ultron maybe come back into the mix. But she's an incredibly powerful being, and again, just her pushing Monica out of the house and then fixing her mistakes, again acknowledging, as Monica says when she's out of the portal, it's Wanda, it's all Wanda, which I think there's maybe a little bit of pull and tug in regards to, it's Wanda, but there's someone pushing her to do this, man. There's someone kind of manipulating the situation.
You're probably right. I kind of hope that it's not. I kind of hope that it is.
That it is 100% her. Yeah.
In that, because it is all her, there are nefarious forces sort of like taking advantage of the fact that she's doing this sort of thing, and then working within the confines of what she's doing. But it is more than likely that there are some people pulling the strings, and there's like probably people like Agnes who are enabling her. Obviously because they have someone else at play here, Mephisto, Nightmare, whatever. So it's really interesting. And what's even more interesting is like after that really creepy altercation, we get like the scariest part of the entire episode, which is still really unsettling to me.
Yes.
Is, when she snapped out of the reality, Vision walks in, she turns around, and it's the dead Vision.
Oh man.
That was totally unexpected. Like, it was, obviously we all knew that it wasn't really Vision, but just the visual imagery of like basically Wanda reanimating a dead man's body is like, that's fucking dark, man.
Very dark. And if it wasn't for him being a robot, and if that was imagine just in a horror film, that would have been someone's head bashed in, blood coming down their face. I mean, this is essentially what that moment was.
Yes, they can get away with so much more because he's not like a person. There's not blood dripping down, or like, part of his face is like blown off. It's just like a robot. But it doesn't. But because of the like emotional connection we have with him, and because we view Vision as like a sentient being and like basically human, it was like it added that extra layer of just creepiness.
It was great, man. Whoever's idea that was to have that shot, because I wonder again, and Kevin Feige we trust, but I wonder if there were some like, are we sure we want to put this in this PG show? I'm glad again taking the risk and taking
let it happen.
And I'm so glad they left that in there, man, because it definitely caught me off guard. Like I like kind of caught myself. I'm a big horror fan, but that I was not expecting that.
No. Yeah, totally not what I mean. I expected him to come in and sort of like try and like console Wanda and everything, which he is sort of doing. But then like she turns around and it's like the real Vision is there, and it ties into like that supposed post credit scene that was at the end of Endgame, which is like she takes dead Vision's body back wherever the hell she's going. Obviously to reanimate it. So.
It was great, man. And then again, in that final moments, Vision still is kind of aware that this isn't the right situation. He's, that's everything's under control, honey. And he's like looking like, okay, what are we going to watch? And he kind of looks at the kid. It's again, the acting is incredible. But there's something that he does that you can tell that he's very aware that this is not right.
Well, and even like Elizabeth Olsen in that, where she like, basically tries to go back to reality. It's sort of like one of those not uncanny, but just like really like creepily like sweet suburban housewife smile. She's like, all right, let's go back and watch TV and it's just like, oh, that's that was like really, really uncomfortable. There is something I think worth discussing about Vision and his sentience, because it's like, is him becoming aware of what's happening like part of Wanda's subconscious that is sort of like knowing that this is all wrong, and it's sort of like becoming right, because I mean he's not alive, or maybe like she's in the process of fully bringing him back. I have no idea, but like based on what we saw, he is not living, and so how can he have sentience?
It makes you wonder, man, because he's had individual scenes without Wanda being present. We see the Navy watch that he went to in episode 2, and he went to work in episode 1, and all that stuff. So, man, it just really makes you wonder on what this. Again, we talked about Ultron coming back. Vision is a computer himself. So again, I don't know if there's another downloaded version of Vision on a back drive from Tony Stark to Vision,
or from Shuri. Maybe when she was,
So to me, there has to be some bits and pieces of Ultron, or not Ultron, but Ultron is a little bit of Vision. But it makes you wonder, if this is 100% her subconscious creating this situation with Vision, and she's kind of realizing the cracks in the situation, or if there's whatever she was able to get from Shuri, or past things of Vision, that there's a little bit of him left in there, and in this recreation of him, and kind of taken off of the comics again, going back of the appearance of Tommy and Billy, knowing that in the comics they were fragments of Mephisto. Maybe this is a fragment of Mephisto in the form of Vision mixed in with Vision. Who knows what they're going to do, man? But I can't wait to get that reveal.
Yeah, it's an episode that answers so many questions, poses so many others. But that to me is going to be the most fascinating thing, because I mean there's scenes in like the trailer that was dropped after the episode and everything about like him trying to breach the real world, and it's like, okay, if he's breaching the real world, what is that going to look like? Here's the other thing, maybe just because maybe Vision isn't actually dead. Maybe she brought him back in some capacity, and what she was seeing there was just like a quick vision, like no pun intended, a quick vision of her, like
the last,
just something traumatic that happened to her. I could see that possibly being the case, but I think it's more likely that he is not living and she is basically using a walking corpse to fulfill her fantasy. Like it's just showing the lengths that she will go to in order to not let go of this. And I mean, like, she's backed into a corner. It's like when she's backed into a corner like this and the larger MCU is sort of starting to breach, she's going to push back, which is clearly what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and again, I'm just kind of thinking of Vision is a computer, so he doesn't have a soul, so she's not able to resurrect souls and people, because if she has that powers, I mean, the sky's the limit, because she can literally bring back any Avenger, including her brother that passed away in the Age of Ultron. So I think there has to be something there with she's not able to bring back his soul, but able to re-download him or reprogram him to the Vision that she knows. But there's something that's going to be said about that reveal, man, of Vision coming back and what he really is and who this Vision is, and this is Vision 2.0.
Right. Here's and I might be in the minority on this one. I hope they don't bring him back. I really do hope that but by the end of this, he is gone, because I think that's the hurdle that she has to get over. You know, it would be too easy for him to just like come back and she'll be able to be happy again. But it's like she has to learn how to handle her grief and her trauma. And like if she's not, if like the solution is to just have him come back, then that doesn't really fix anything, you know?
That's a good point, man. And I think as these trailers have kind of shown, I think there's going to be a conflict between those two. Whatever version of Vision this is, definitely. I think she's going to have to take him out again, springboarding off of that into Multiverse of Madness. But yeah, I think you're right, man. Even though, well, again, they're introducing the Young Avengers, you can get the West Coast Avengers with Vision and all that. But I think, yeah, it's unfortunate because Paul Bettany, as they talked about, I think last week, someone pointed out that he's literally been a part of every single phase, like the launching pad from first Iron Man 3 of phase 2 being the first film out the gate, Civil War being phase 3, and now him being in the mix. So I would hate to lose Vision or lose Paul Bettany in the role. Again, maybe there's a way of bringing back Jarvis and having his voice be reacclimated and not be our Vision, but it could be, again, the West Coast of Vision. He's not in love with this version of Vision. He's not in love with Wanda. It could be, again, the Vision comic book run where he tries to create his own family. So it could be another version of the character in a sense. But I think you're right. I wouldn't want to see Vision and Wanda at the end of the show back together. I think it just makes it a little bit more impactful if he doesn't come back.
No, I definitely agree. Again, just so much more that we have to, you know, we're like basically halfway through this season. So it's like, we still have a lot left. And clearly by the show, there's a lot left to sort of discuss. Before we start giving our final thoughts though, guys, be sure to jump down to the comment section and let us know some of your theories, what you think's going on with Vision, stuff you'd like to see. Let's have a great conversation down in the comments section below or in the chat if you're watching us live. I have been paying attention. You guys are putting some great I'm
reading these theories, man.
Again, reading
like melting right now.
For sure. Elliott, all right, closing thoughts on this episode and like any just sort of last predictions or theories or anything you want to bring up.
Well, man, what this show has done in these last 4 episodes is just kind of up the ante and showed just kind of this next phase of Marvel is just kind of getting weirder, getting darker, getting more into the psyche of these characters that we've come to love. And this episode to me was just so great of getting that bird's eye view, that outside perspective of S.W.O.R.D and Monica Rambeau, her losing her mother, you know, planting the seeds for Captain Marvel 2 and her powers and her abilities, and the struggle of who's the lead, the director of S.W.O.R D. So it plants those seeds. Then we get reintroduced to Darcy and Jimmy Woo, and having Darcy in the mix now makes me excited to see if Jane Foster makes some type of appearance. And again, there's a lot of radiation. Who knows how far this radiation is going to expand from Westview? And again, there's the whole thing of like House of M. Is Wanda going to be the reason why mutants are created in the MCU because of this after effects of this show? So who knows if Jane Foster gets some type of sickness from coming into the mix and radiation, and, you know, leads into Thor and the Dark World. So again, what I'm getting at is this planted a lot of seeds for not only this show, but in the greater MCU, but just singling it into just one episode. I thought it was great, man. The beginning, that cold open of the re-blipping, everyone coming back to the mix. And then that haunting image of dead Vision's head smushed in, gray eyes, gray look, was just, great to see, man. So overall, I think this last week was my favorite episode, but I think this took the cake for my favorite so far. And I'm really excited to see what episode 5 brings. I think we're gonna probably go back to Westview if I'm playing.
Get the 80s.
Get the 80s, and maybe they mix in what's going on in Westview and then cutting us out and what's going on outside, or, you know, they just focus strictly on the 80s. But whatever they're gonna do, I have full faith in this show, and I'm excited for the rest of this season.
Well, I think that's the thing now that you've introduced the outside world. I think now every time you go into the sitcom world, you sort of have to like blend the two together. And so, like we'll definitely get the 80s next week. I think that's more than likely. But like we'll probably get some cutbacks to like, Jimmy Woo and Monica Rambeau and like Darcy and
Mhm.
everyone out there. And yeah, I just I don't know. I'm trying to think if this is my favorite episode of the entire season thus far, because it, like, a part of me wants to say yes because of like the last 5 to 10 minutes, which are just
Same.
unbelievable. But at the same time, it is like a recap exposition heavy episode, and I don't tend to gravitate towards those as much. But that being said, it does that incredibly well, and so it I don't know, maybe it is my favorite episode of the season. Who knows? But it is. It was great, like Elizabeth Olsen in those moments. Monica Rambeau, seeing her and what she's gone through, I thought was very emotional, very moving. It's gonna like just continue to bolster her character throughout the rest of the series. Seeing Darcy come back and not hate her was a nice win. Even like, look, I'll be real. Like, I liked Randall Park in Ant-Man and the Wasp as Jimmy Woo. Like, he was kind of funny. He got a little bit annoying here and there. And as much as I love that movie, like, I say that, but like, it was almost like they just knew how to handle him here. Like, he wasn't like trying so hard. Like, some of his remarks were just like, they felt like that character, but like,
I love how he always, like, he thinks it was 2 examples where Monica says, "So what's your situation?" Like, he goes into his whole spill, or like when Darcy offers some potato chips. Yeah, I would like to have kids. I love this little scenes for him. He is a very enjoyable character, and I love the way they're writing both of those characters that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm glad you brought up that chips bit, because that was such a great, like, that was a classic sitcom comedic misunderstanding in the real world. So that was, really, really, really good. And honestly, I'll say this right now. I think this is cracking the top 3 just in terms of like MCU projects.
Content.
Like, it's,
hey, man,
yeah,
it's not quite up there for me, but the potentiality of it all, of once we wrap up these 9 episodes, if it continues on this trajectory in regards to storytelling and building the greater universe, at the same time still sticking within one singular story, you might not be off there, Griff. But I mean, it's going to take a lot to get past, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Infinity War, but it has the potential, man. And this is so exciting about Phase 4. These television shows are going to give us these type of stories, these type of risk taking, man.
Well, it's the kind of thing that's like, you can't explore these characters in, like, I mean, you can in a traditional film, but it's like you get more time to explore them in like a 6-hour format or whatever. And I think that's really what's helping this series out a lot, is like Wanda is like now becoming one of the most interesting characters out of the entire universe, because we've gotten like, 4 episodes of television dedicated to exploring her and what's going on with that. And just the originality of it, the writing, the acting, the direction. I mean, this is unlike anything they've ever done before. I don't know if they'll ever be able to do anything like it again, just because it is that sort of like genre bending just sort of trip. But man, I'm loving every second of it. But guys, again, what do you all think? Be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on the episode down in the comments section below. Thank you all so much if you're watching this live, and if you're watching it on the replay, thanks for checking it out. Be sure to hit that like button, share this theories, video, speculation, recap, review with your friends, your WandaVision loving friends, and then don't forget to subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss out on the rest of our WandaVision coverage. We do these reviews and recaps every single Friday. And so if you want to join in on that conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, Elliott, for joining me. As always, where can everyone find you?
Hey, man, I love talking WandaVision with you, Griff, man, and excited to talk about it next week with you, man. So, yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, as well as on social media accounts like Instagram at Movie Files and on Twitter at Movie Files Live.
Yes, and we will be back next Friday at a yet to be determined time. As you can tell, sometimes we record earlier, sometimes we do later, but you just keep an eye out on the FilmSpeak channel for the next recap and
notification bell so you can get the alert from when Griff goes live.
And this is why I have him on, because he reminds me of things that I forget to tell you all. But anyways, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. That's going to do it for this review of WandaVision episode number 4, and we will catch you back here next week. Take care.